Alone, Redfall is creepy. The town is littered with stories of people who were attacked by or turned into vampires when the vampire gods took over the once charming island town. Wandering through dark spaces with only a flashlight to guide the way heightens tension even when armed. Developer Arcane Austin knows how to craft a menacing atmosphere. However, the odds changed noticeably when other players joined the adventure. Together, we made quick work of vampires, their cult followers, and the mercenary group intent on taking us down. Instead of quiet mutters in the dark, there was camaraderie, and what was once a potentially chilling challenge through an infested city became a hunting party ready to take on the biggest baddies with guns and powers blazing. I had the pleasure of playing about 4 hours of Redfall on PC with 1, 2, and 3 additional co-op members. In that time, we liberated a community center, took on the procedurally generated vampire nests, fought mini-bosses, and did plenty of exploring. My temporary teammates at Arcane Austin indulged me in trying out the hard difficulty, and with that settled, we were off. The Redfall developers have made it abundantly clear at this point that, despite having the look of some other looter shooters or 4-player co-op games, Redfall is still an Arcane game. Sure, there are limited abilities per character and stealth isn't as big of a factor, but the storytelling and simulated world are all there. You'll randomly stumble across a vampire feasting on an unfortunate victim, opposing factions suddenly break out in gunfire, and sometimes you'll hear enemies discuss their plans for the future. This all still feels true with 2-player co-op. The bulk of my playtime at Arcane Austin was with creative director Ricardo Bear, who played as Jacob, a former mercenary turned solo sniper with a magical eye and raven to go with it. I tested Devinder, a cryptid hunter who came to Redfall for a book signing and ended up putting his tools to use to help liberate the town. I picked up the controller and promised Bear I'd rein in my worst gaming tendencies, scanning the contents of a shop for spare health in imaginary junk food my character doesn't need but deserves, and watching enemy patterns to scheme the best way to eliminate them as efficiently as possible. Old habits die hard, and I frequently found myself drifting off our path to explore. With only one other person on the adventure, more often than not, I felt like we were partner detectives. Redfall stands still in the moment the vampires attacked. Though we didn't spend much time with the main Redfall story, what I know is this. In order to defeat the now reigning vampire gods of Redfall, we must first understand who they were before they turned. Then we can strike. Before then, though, we had plenty of fun coordinating attacks against lesser but still powerful vampires and their followers. I did get to liberate the Redfall Maritime Center from a menacing blood tree, though. It was a quick fight with some loot and story beats as a reward. With the center free, we were able to collaborate with the civilians to establish another main base of operations. Working with the people of Redfall is not only a major story element, but a nice general theme that's apparent through all its parts. For instance, instead of getting money, you earn support. The currency is earned by completing objectives and finding useful items that go back to the folks hiding in safe houses. Toilet paper has a higher value than, say, a creepy doll or a wedding ring.
Get ready.
Layla joined us next.
That's a neat trick.
Her psychic abilities are versatile, but probably the coolest part of her kit is how she can call in her vampire ex-boyfriend to help slay enemies. Combat balance with 3 players still felt good as we challenged more special vampires. The best chance we had at a guaranteed fight with good loot was by taking on side quests. We did one that required us to eliminate another blood tree, but this time Redfall's iconic angler waited inside the tree as its fiend. This vampire was noticeably at a disadvantage when taking on 3 of us, as it was only able to target and reel in 1 player, but it still got some pulls on us that we were able to quickly counter. During our time taking on cult camps, we encountered other special vampires among their ranks. These included things like the Shroud, a tricky vampire that casts a dark bubble over players, limiting their field of vision with a dark purple wall. She'll also throw attacks that can be rather damaging if you're not paying attention. Then there was the Blood Bag, a gross vampire that floated around with sacks of blood that, when destroyed, does explosive damage. Killing any of these special vampires and completing objectives contributes to angering the vampire gods. A meter shows up as a reminder. Once full, the Rook appears. The only way to be rid of a Rook is to either die or kill it. Like other special vampires, the Rook can teleport and has its own special abilities, like summoning the thunderstorm that does heavy damage if you stay outside. However, kiting indoors poses its own challenges as the Rook is fast. Slaying the Rook gives a guaranteed unrivaled drop, the most powerful kind of weapon in Redfall. Random enemies getting dragged into a Rook fight or any boss fight certainly makes these encounters more challenging, but even that changes when 4 heroes are in the party. Our 4th and final player joined in as Remy,
Let's make it quick then.
the last of the 4 characters available at launch. Like Dev, Remy is big on gadgets. Her robot partner Brabone can distract enemies, she's got C4 to explode enemies from afar, and her ultimate serves as a massive buff to revive fallen allies in the well and heal all members in the well over time. The 4-player co-op dynamic is as chaotic as you'd imagine it, though it was also easy to pair off and approach objectives creatively. Sometimes one of us would use a cool UV weapon to turn a vampire to stone from afar, giving the other an opportunity to finish it off with a satisfying punch. Redfall doesn't require each player to use a different character, nor is any character limited on the weapons they can use, making character selection a personal but optional strategic choice too. The main new challenge we took on as a group was fighting our way through vampire nests. These procedurally generated challenges only take a few minutes to get through and don't necessarily involve combat. In our run, we got the basic blood trance nest characteristic, one that meant all vampires were asleep and would wake upon being attacked, or if we touched the blood tendrils connecting them to the nest. We carefully avoided them, destroying the heart at the end of the nest to trigger its collapse, and gathered a ton of loot before making our escape. If you don't leave before the nest completely destabilizes, you'll only lose the bonus experience that's awarded for successfully escaping. Nests provide an interesting gameplay element aside from a one-off adventure. Their territory is marked by a field that gives a buff to all vampires within its vicinity, making the area more dangerous. The longer a nest is left alone, the larger its territory becomes. Arcane Austin studio director Harvey Smith told me that other nest characteristics include things like a completely dark version filled with the sleeping vampire traps, and even nests with fire hazards everywhere. Cozy, huh? Despite playing on the hard difficulty, mini-boss challenges like the Rook were easy to take on with 4 people. Instead of requiring a ton of kiting to take it down, we just let Brabone grab its attention and filled the monster with bullets. Bear did say Arcane is constantly tuning difficulty, and I even heard him making notes to the team watching us play regarding changes he wanted to make. We weren't on the final build either, which was noticeable with some graphical glitches and hitches, but that's not too unusual with pre-release builds. And as with most games these days, Bear said they'd be listening to the Redfall community post-launch and tune the game as needed. Combat aside, one of the greatest joys in co-op with all the characters are the interactions.
There she is.
It's not only their conversations, but also how they engage with the world. For example, each character plays instruments with varying levels of skill. It's a small detail, but a delightful one that further immersed me in Arcane's Redfall. Collecting notes and taking stock of the little details did make me feel like I was falling behind my team at times, but exploration is still important. For instance, we found a series of bells that, when rung correctly, led to a secret area with loot and plenty of vampires to fight. Even with the additional time I got in Redfall, I haven't gotten to play much with weapon loadouts or skill trees. My time did confirm that when Redfall is out on May 2nd, I'll want to have multiple instances going. A solo playthrough so I can explore corners and read notes to my heart's content, and at least one instance of a co-op game so I can learn more about all the characters. I'm still unsure about who I want to play, but I know at the very least I'm going to have a good time staking vampires. For more on Redfall, don't miss our single-player preview, and for everything else in the world of gaming, stick with IGN.